Hi, I'm here to share some enduring lessons from 2020. So I just want to say, for starters, wow, this has been a year. I think every one of us needs to recognize that this has been a challenging year emotionally, a challenging year physically, a challenging year intellectually, and that we've survived it. So let's take a moment and, pat ourselves on the back because this is year end. We're in December now and we're moving on to 2021. And I hope that that will look much better. That said, there's lots that we can learn from 2020, particularly an oldie but goodie that I remember from open source is the fact that most of the hard problems in the world today really aren't technology problems. Not at the moment. They're people problems. The technology will change, but the people will always be human. And when humans act human, we're sometimes surprised. It's a non deterministic system. So we need to remember to pay attention to and learn and grow our skills about humans and how to interact with them. Of course, we had the pandemic this year, and it's still ongoing. We have some future possibilities of hope with the vaccine and with general alignment around trying to push back this virus, this pandemic, and trying to make it possible for us to move forward and understand the risks of the new global world as we understand it. This pandemic, of course, changed many of us who are very privileged to be working from home. And that, again, an emotional and an intellectual and a physical shock to our systems. For those of you who maybe work from home regularly, not a big deal, but I bet many of your coworkers have found this change very different. I myself found that I get a whole lot of my social outlet from work. Now, that social outlet doesn't seem to be met through lots and lots of video calls. It seems to like going out for dinners with people. It seems to like going to events with people. And this is a rough year for those things. Then, of course, we have the challenge of systemic bias and systemic racism, certainly in the US and more broadly globally. So it is something that we as technologists have to pay lots and lots of attention to. We have to be working to end racism. We have to be working to end bias in our tooling. And we have to be paying attention to that very important need of equity, not even equality, but equity, making sure that we're doing everything we can to make our systems and our tools and our processes work in a way that gives as much advantage to those who once were underprivileged as we give to those who are part of the majority class today. This is work we will have to do. This is not a short problem. It's not a problem that we're going to fix in 2021. But I think that as we move forward, as we pay more attention to being human and how humans need to respect, interact with, and engage with one another, we will find a way to understand humanity as equal and understand humanity as a joy, regardless of structural racism, regardless of historical divides. But it is something we have to actively do. And it's something that we have to call ourselves and our friends and each other on the carpet for. I had a very interesting experience once, many years ago, when I was playing a foosball game with some of my business partners. And I used a term that I had heard lots growing up in the Midwest in what are now considered sunset towns. And I was called by my friend, hey, that particular word you just used is a slur. Did you not know that that came from a stereotyping of a particular racial body of people? I didn't know that at the time. And so all of a sudden, gyp, which is short for gypsies, was moved out of my lexicon and something that I try very hard not ever to say. There are so many of those things that permeate our language that it's important to have conversations about them. Grandfathering someone in about a rule is actually a statement about racism and having a white grandfather in the United States. There are so many of these examples in language that we have to pay attention and be actively changing that. But even more important, we have to be acting to be sure that we are not holding up the systemic racism and systems that manage our racist policies today. We also have had a very striking reminder here in the Bay Area and the West Coast of the US of the fact that there is climate change. Climate change is happening. Much of the West Coast was on fire, and we have no planet B. So amid all of these challenges, amid all of this year's pain points thrown at us one after another, I think many of us were struggling to find ourself in this, trying to understand who to ask for help from, to understand how to reconcile the new information that was coming in each day, each hour over the last year. And I think understanding that, internalizing these challenges and actually making space in yourself and your company and your community and your broader world to make space for this change, we have to look to really important characteristics, I think, within open source communities, within communities that are successful today, but always going out and embracing different perspectives, making sure that we look at what we're saying or what we're doing from our perspective, but then we take a moment and consider it from a different perspective. We seek out people who aren't like us to see how a message might land, or ask for help when trying to deal with a problem that is not necessarily in your wheelhouse, or where you may have overstepped or misstepped and said something inappropriate or done something inappropriate. Seek these other perspectives, get help, get engaged with these views, and try to be empathetic. As you are doing this, you'll get an opportunity to learn. And as you learn, you grow and you have more perspective on the world today and more capacity to empathize and more ability to share what you've learned in a helpful and growing and empathetic and just generally generous way. In this, of course, as we ask ourselves to be more active in working and changing the world, we have to make sure that we're measuring what matters. Of course, within open source, this can be many different things depending on what the project is that you're trying to deliver and what that strategy is behind the project. So maybe it's measuring new contributors, or maybe it's measuring how many contributors are still contributing after a month and 6 months, because what you're looking for is a stable contributor base. Regardless of this, identify your strategic goals for your project, for yourself, and measure how you are making impact against those. Make sure as you're going through the world, listen, watch for feedback, pay attention to the cues that are around you. If someone makes a face, ask and try to understand why what you just said perhaps hit them the wrong way or challenged their perspective. Try to understand what is going on in their head based on their previous experiences, based on their ability to empathize with you. And then, of course, find common space. Walk a mile in their shoes. Try to engage, try to understand, and try to participate when you are finding something a challenge. Try to help when you see someone else finding something a challenge. Engage and don't presume why this person may be stuck. Open up your heart and your opportunities to understand that humans everywhere will be challenged and that you working with other people, other humans, can go ahead and make the world a better place. We have a huge opportunity ahead of us. 2021 is going to look very different from 2020 and from many of the years before it. We have a world, we hope, where we get back to being out and about and in the world, interacting with lots more people, understanding your interactions with those people, both as a human and technologically, can help us understand how to move our world in more positive or more negative directions. But regardless of how we choose to engage in the world, I certainly hope it's for positive direction. But as we engage in the world, make sure that you're paying attention to doing the unglamorous work, the work that everyone needs done, the service, the act of service you might do for a friend who's in trouble, or the work that may never get done because it's a refactor in your project. But pay attention to that work, the things that underpin a good, stable society, but aren't rewarded necessarily. And then when you find those and you're working on them, make sure to find ways as a leader in the project to channel rewards toward the things you need to be done. Channel rewards for making change in the world. Channel rewards for behaviors you want to see. Understand in all of this, of course, as technologists, we have to be respecting privacy. We have to be making sure that all the work we do, when it's connecting people, when it's drawing conclusions, when it's synthesizing two different chunks of work, when it's trying to bring our perspective to a new problem, it has to be done respectfully. It has to be done with great care around personal data. And it has to be done with great care about those who have been underrepresented in our world and our society in the last many years and many generations. So I hope you are interested in working with me, moving forward into 2021 and taking 2021 as an opportunity to make the world better. You're amazing, and I want your perspective in the world. All of that work, all of that help that you can bring to your project, to your company, to your community, which may just be social, that is important. That helps you behave as a leader, helps you guide directions, figure out what needs to be done in the world, approach that problem as an opportunity and empathetically, working and collaborating across your community, across cultural divides, and generally working to make the world a better place. My last note, because 2020 has been such a challenge, is don't forget you have this opportunity as leaders to bring people together, but you also have this opportunity as leaders to bring in more novelty and serendipity and to have fun. So make sure in 2021, as you're leading your projects, as you're leading your teams, that you're engaging and empathizing with people, you're looking at things from new perspectives, and above all, you're having fun. Thanks.